I mean, if Todd Monken comes back, is he gonna have a graphic? And it's like hashtag right back.
That would be funny. He should. Whoever's listening that has tentacles into the graphics department, please make that happen. Let's run it back.
Totally should. Totally should.
The graphic.
Welcome to My God a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I review Georgia's 2021 National Championship season, and we answer questions from you, our listeners. As always, remember to check out store.mygodapodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at My God a Podcast. Finally, if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, 5 stars obviously, and review the show. If you leave us a review, you just might hear it on an upcoming episode. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. What do you have in your glass this evening?
I have a drink of champions. I've got the Colonel Taylor out right now. The E.H. Taylor small batch.
Very nice.
It's a fine beverage.
I am going tonight with Angels Envy, because the Georgia Bulldogs are the envy of all
all the Angels. They made angels of all their foes.
all other college teams envy Georgia right now. So
yeah, it's a solid bourbon too, by the way.
It is very good. When did I get this? I got this right around New Year, I think.
Did you get it when you were preparing for the Michigan game?
I think so. I think like that weekend I went. I don't know. Just whenever I pass the liquor store, I'd at least just go and look and see what they've got.
Nice.
So yeah, I think it was it was right around New Year's Eve. I think it was maybe like December 30th or something, and they had one bottle, so picked it up. Yeah, it's good. I really like it.
Well, we're doing the review, the season review. Is that what we're doing here? We're doing
that was the plan. But I mean, we can kind of talk about whatever we want to talk about.
We're national champions. We do what we want.
It was quite the season. I don't know. I think I was we were kind of thinking back to like what did we do last year, and last year a season review was very different. Because there was a big kind of turning point in 2020, and Stetson got hurt, and then JT came in, and so we were really focused on that, and there was a lot to kind of think about and ponder of how the season had changed and looking forward, and then that was very different when you're national champions. Like I kind of want to just keep living in the moment. But
yeah.
I did, as always in the extensive podcast preparation. I went and I did go back and listen to the season preview, sped up, but I listened to it. Couple of things stood out. One of the first things, and this is actually something we had written down like in our show notes to make sure we talked about in that, was you had done some research on the Rick Kirby narrative, and that I think your statement was basically that this season could be a turning point, because they were very close, after 5 years in. And I've always said, we've always said in this podcast, that comparing Kirby's first 5 years to Rick's first 5 years was a compliment, not an insult. So I always thought that those comparisons were silly in the first place. But yeah, now we said in the national championship review that the narrative was dead, and it definitely is. So, and if you just look at the wins and losses, so after 6 years, Rick was 61-17 with 2 SEC titles. Kirby is 66-15 with 1 SEC title and 1 national championship. So I don't think we have to hear about that anymore. Right? Like
I don't think that we should. Um, I think that this season was definitely the separation point in my opinion, just because he got over the national championship hump, right? Like that was what was always holding Mark Richt back. It wasn't that he wasn't a good coach. It wasn't that he couldn't get things done. It was that he could never get over the hump of, you know, any number of these seasons that we went through. I mean, he had everybody's number except for Florida, basically, and LSU to a certain extent. But like, you know, Florida was the regular season killer for him. I think South Carolina was probably sprinkled in there a few times too. But like, you know, there were regular season killers that kind of kept us out of the BCS conversations, right? That
Mm-hmm.
was the BCS back then, right? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
making that up, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
you're right.
because then we were vying for the top two, and so I think that if we lived in a college football, you know, playoff world back then, that there might have been some opportunities there for us to squeak in, but um, yeah, I mean, you'll never be able to compare those. But what happened after his fifth season obviously was a pretty big different is an opportunity for him to continue to distinguish his tenure at UGA even more than what he's already done. So he got over the hump with the national championship this year. He got over the hump of beating Nick Saban for the first time.
Yeah.
We dominated the way that he wanted to dominate pretty much the entire way through. There was a number of statistics that Seth Emerson put out there about, you know, just the even on the offensive side, like you know, UGA was the first team to since Tebow, since the 2008 Tebow team, the first team to have first national championship team to have no 1,000-yard wide receivers or 1,000-yard running backs. We had neither of those. That's the first time that's happened in a long time. We're the first team in SEC history to have over 6,500 yards of total offense and to have neither of those things, 1,000-yard wide receiver or 1,000-yard rusher. That is pretty phenomenal. If anything, that underscores the job that Monken did all season long. And that definitely cannot be underscored more, because we turned a page from the Coley era and even the Chaney era, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We very clearly had deficiencies on the offensive side of the ball the last several years. It scares the crap out of me that we may potentially have to replace him, but I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, I mean, offensively, we figured things out. I mean, we freaking won a national championship with a former walk-on quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Which
mean,
has not happened before.
right. Yeah. I mean, I think like so many narratives should be dead. So you got the Kirby and Rick comparison should be dead. The whole man ball, I think that should be dead. Um, can't win a national championship with Stetson Bennett a quarterback. That should be dead.
Mm-hmm. Can't win a national championship leaning on the defense.
Yep. Which okay, so you just rattled off some offensive stats. I've got some defensive stats for you.
Hit me with the defense.
Georgia led the SEC in interceptions, 16 interceptions, pass breakups with 62, and interceptions returned for touchdowns, 4. The 4 pick sixes are tied for the most in a season in Georgia football history. So it's pretty incredible. I remember like early in the season, we were like, man, we have like a pick six like every game. Like, when will this streak end? And then,
Yeah,
ending the
seriously.
season on one too. Holy cow. I'm still just like every time I see like the video of Ringo on Twitter or I see the video of AD Mitchell, which by the way, again, reminder, make sure you're following us on Instagram and now as well. We are getting a little bit more active there. We've been doing some more video content on both platforms. got something else in the works right now. I actually haven't even talked to you about that, so we'll talk about that later, maybe. Um, but so I just like I can't get enough of it. I can't get enough of it.
It's a surprise for even me. I tell you, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to be able. It's fun to be able to create some fun stuff,
Yeah,
especially coming out of being national champion. So, um, Jim's taking a video victory lap.
yeah.
I kind of started it. I kind of started it.
You did. You inspired me, and you were like sending me some ideas, and we kind of started to run with it. So it was fun.
I do.
Um,
I have a lot of ideas that I just don't have time to execute, but I do it for my wife's business too, the Lindsay's photography business. But um, there's all sorts of videos and stuff that you can get creative with Instagram pretty easily.
yeah, for sure. Let's see. Let's hit some other. Let's hit my notes from the season preview, and like kind of look back to see where we were back before the season started. Um, so the first thing I wrote down, I don't know if you remember this. That was the episode where like my microphone wasn't plugged in, and I was like so mad about it when I went back and was editing
Was
it.
it really?
Yeah, that was the episode. I was so pissed, and like
Wow.
sounded so bad, but whatever. No one cares about that. That was the first ever episode to have a soundboard. That was the first time we ever did that, and like I didn't tell you I was going to do that, and I surprised you with like Scott Howard saying people's names. That was the first one ever. So shout out to
Robert Beal.
shout out Robert Beal. Let's see. That was the birth of Full Tilt. That was the week when the week that we recorded that episode was the week that Kirby was saying that we expected to be full tilt for the first game. And we were worried that that was the new hopeful.
Little did we know we were going to be full tilt all the way through to the last game.
Oh my gosh! Seriously, that was like the theme of the year was like who was hopeful to play. So a lot of injury talk. We spent like a whole lot of time talking about injuries and who was going to be in, who wasn't.
Do you think that we spent as much time talking about injuries as Alabama fans have spent talking about injuries the last week or so? I mean, I'm just curious because we were missing some people throughout the year, guys.
Yeah. I don't know that we talked about it that much. I mean, to be fair to us, I heard that if Alabama had Williams and Mechie, they would have won the basketball game last night too. I don't know. That's what I heard.
Nice.
Just like football. So here's a question for you. Whatever happened to the Alliance? Because that was something we talked about. Remember the Alliance?
Oh yeah. The Alliance. I never heard of her.
I kind of want to do research. Like, does it even exist? Like, is it still a thing? I'm not sure. I didn't do enough preparation, but
we're trying to put glasses on it.
So, all right, this is something that was said that I just thought was funny. I think I said this. I said, it's nice coming into a year with a returning starting quarterback. Little did we know.
We had two returning starting quarterbacks.
Exactly. And we're going to get to say that next year, right? We'll be able to say the same thing. Stetson's back. So,
oh yeah, not that we have two.
No. That we'll have the original statement will still be accurate. That we have
unless we decide to go into the transfer portal and pull another quarterback controversy out of our hat.
Right. Seriously. Yeah, I know. You never know. Hey, I mean, honestly, because JT Daniels was totally out of left field when we got him. That was super random.
Agreed.
So you never know. Never know what Kirby's going to do. The only other thing was just like some kind of hits and misses that we had. So some things that were good. We actually mentioned Dan Jackson. I thought that was pretty impressive. That we talked about him in the season preview. We talked about A.D. Mitchell. the pass catcher of second 18. We said we were excited to see him, or we're wondering if he could replicate what he did in the spring game. This one was funny. John Tweets had actually sent in a listener question, and his question was, what was more likely to happen? JT Daniels win the Heisman or Nakobe Dean win the Butkus? And I gotta say, I said Nakobe Dean win the Butkus, and it was like I should have gone and put some money on it. Apparently, so so that was good.
What was my answer?
You went with JT. I
Damn it.
wasn't going to mention that, but you asked.
I do remember us talking about Bowers preseason too.
We did. So someone asked, like, who was going to be like the offensive or like some breakout players, and Brock Bowers was our breakout player for the offense. So we hit that on the money.
Yeah.
So that was the good. The bad, or not so much the bad, but like we were super excited. We had a couple of freshmen that we thought were going to be impact players, and they both played, but they didn't end up being, I would say, impact players. So that was Smile Munden, which will definitely be counting on him a lot next year, and then Amarius Mims. So those were the bigger, somewhat misses. They did, but like I said, they both played. Those are my main notes from it. It was it was it was kind of fun just to go back and listen to what we sounded like before we were national champions. Like not the same pep in our step, I guess. I don't know. The before times.
Could you hear the tentative optimism? Could you cut it with a knife?
Well, that is the one that, like, at the end of the episode, you said that if Georgia doesn't win the SEC, the season's gone off the rails. So that was also that
one. Hey, boy, did we go off the rails.
Oh, man. So, fun times. Let's see. I did write down, we'll call this the news and notes. Just talking about who's decided to run it back, and then who's in the portal. So let's see. So I guess we could start with the portal first. Let's start with the air quotes bad news first, I guess. So you've got JT Daniels, obviously, is in the portal. Destination still TBD. Jalen Johnson is going to East Carolina. Justin Robinson to Mississippi State. Jalen Kimber is going to Florida. I'll get that. Brini is going to Arkansas. Wait, hold on. I can get some help on this next one. Oh, I don't have it on there. Come on. Lavassier Carroll is going to South Carolina. Amir Speed to Michigan State. And then Jermaine Burton, obviously, to Alabama. I definitely don't get the transferring to a rival thing, but whatever. To each his own, I suppose. So enough about those guys. We'll move on from them. And running it back, though, you've got the three Smiths, Chris Smith, Tyke Smith, and Nolan Smith, all coming back to play next year. William Poole running it back. Robert Beal running it back. The unofficial, official wide receiver of My God a Podcast, Kyrus Jackson running it back. And then, obviously, last but not least, the mailman. So there's a lot of guys coming back that I wasn't sure would. I'm sure this stuff isn't done yet, right? I mean, more could leave still, and we don't know of anyone who's transferring in just yet. And I'm sure that we will have multiple transfers in. I'm sure, but you think back to this time last year. Like, we didn't know about Demetrius Robertson, for example. Like, he stayed through the spring, played spring practice, and then transferred out. So who knows? I'm not going to assume that everything is settled at this point. That's kind of
right.
It's just the way it is. The way it is now.
Yeah. Until the season kind of kicks off, there's no telling what can happen. I mean, freaking Jamie Newman, he opted out like a couple weeks before the season even started. So
crazy.
Yeah. Sorry to kill the vibe, but I don't expect that we'll have a quarterback controversy, right? Like, there's no quarterback controversy anymore.
I mean,
Ah, I
that
kid, I kid.
yeah, that's where the you know that's where the narratives that should be over that aren't. I will say
Yeah, the
like
narratives that will never die.
like in general, like the other day when I mean it was basically was it all on the same day? Was it the same day that Burton left and Stetson announced he was coming back, or it was
So,
at least within a
so
day?
JT announced that he was leaving. Burton announced that he was leaving, and then Stetson announced that he was leaving. I believe it was all within a couple of hours of each other.
Yeah, it was all okay. So
It was almost like they came out of the team meeting. We're like, "Yep, we're done."
right, right. I will say like I'm not gonna say that I didn't see anything like negative on Twitter, but most of it was not like in general it wasn't people that I followed. It would be like I would see someone was saying something like Graham, for example, tweeted something about Stetson. And like I clicked on it and then when I was like when I read the replies. Like that's usually when I would see this stuff. Um I didn't see a ton of it, but it's definitely out there. But I mean, whatever. That's where I think Twitter isn't. Well, I enjoy Twitter. It's definitely not real life.
No,
I don't think it's a good representation of like the headspace of the fan base. I guess.
no, it's not a good representation of anything. I mean, like all all Georgia fans are not like awful. All Alabama fans are not awful.
But
Um, most everything, most everything that I heard from people that were in person with Alabama was that they were pretty positive about the result, and that's definitely not been the experience that I've seen on Twitter. But um, not all Republicans are represented the same way as they appear to be on Twitter, and vice versa for Democrats. So it's like the 1% or whatever, like the people that are like super vocal on Twitter, and there's like a silent majority that's kind of in the background for just about everything that you could think of.
yeah,
So I think that the silent majority, that like the rational Georgia fan, the silent majority that's like been rooting for and pulling for Stetson, and um, understands why he's there, just like the silent majority like that understands why Jake Fromm was chosen as the quarterback over Justin Fields. So like,
yeah.
I mean, I think that there's more of us out there that just get it, as opposed to those that are just like, yeah, but
Right, right.
I mean, it's like the most popular guy on the football team in the South is the backup quarterback.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's kind of always been that way. I mean, it's always been that way in
Mm-hmm.
Georgia. It was there. When we were in school, it was like, heck, man. Probably when you got into school, right? It was like people wanted to put in Corey Phillips over Quincy Carter. Like, I remember that. Holy cow! Like
Yeah,
it's like tale as
I
old as
mean, I vaguely remember that, but like, I mean, most of the time it was like, hey man, we got this guy DJ Shockley, let's see what he can do.
right.
Um,
Yep.
which, you know, I I can't dispute that his yeah. You wonder what might have been, you know what I mean? But like at the same time, like I don't know that we talked about the beginning of the show, like the Kirby and the Rick comparisons.
Mhm.
So Kirby's contending with. I personally think that Kirby's contending with so much more than what Rick did. Kirby's contending with an Alabama, a Death Star program that's been in fully operational for the last decade or so, whereas Rick had to contend with an up and coming coach in Florida and a program in LSU that you know Saban kind of left, and Les Miles, I guess, just kind of filled the gaps, but like
Mhm.
he didn't have to really contend with a whole lot beyond those two programs. he also didn't have to contend with name, image, likeness situations. He didn't have to contend with no questions asked 1 year transfers.
Yep.
He didn't have to contend with the transfer portal or COVID or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like that there's been so many more curveballs thrown Kirby's way that he has been able to like. I mean, he's probably one of the more savvy guys that navigated the COVID situation and pulled in one of the top recruiting classes in the country.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Definitely.
and then he followed it up with the national championship the year after, and now we've got more players on deck. Our blue chip ratio is through the roof. Um, it by and large looks like that we're going to basically be neck and neck with Alabama again from a talent perspective. So all those things into consideration, it's like, Kirby is definitely primed for he's primed for success. So if we did, what was it, 5 years? So 6 years into
Yes.
Rick's tenure.
Yeah.
So that would
Those
have
are the,
been
the wins and losses I did before. So that would have been 2000,
2007, right? Or
well,
2006.
2001 through 2006. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I,
year
I I
six
think
for
every
Kirby was '06, which was the Stafford's freshman year.
right.
The first year
Every
post Shockley era.
everything that happened after that, in my opinion, was downhill.
It was much more like, so it was pretty like everything was, I would say, like stable through '05, right? Then you took a dip in '06, '07 was good, and then it was like step back, and then it was basically '12 was the only other like year that jumps out, right?
A
Um,
senior year quarterback, a senior year quarterback year.
no, man, that's that. So that's what's funny is like you think about it like that. That was Aaron Murray's sophomore year. No,
Was
sorry,
it?
no, it was his junior year. Junior year.
Okay. I knew he
That was
was an
his junior year.
upperclassman. Maybe he wasn't a senior.
Yeah, yeah, that was his junior year. But it was a freshman Todd Gurley. Is really, I mean, that was the biggest piece there.
Mm-hmm.
12 to me. But you had a good point earlier though. Like if you think about it, like if the playoff was around back then, Georgia probably makes it in '02. Um,
Yeah.
maybe makes it in '05. Who knows? Maybe, I'm not sure. The chocolate year, '07 and then 12. Like those are all potentials. You
So
never know. You never know. But
so that's kind of what I was going at. But so if you put all those scenarios together, do you think that DJ Shockley sticks around in the
no
current
way.
situation?
No.
Yeah. So like that's kind of what I'm saying there. Like like
Yeah.
looking back on some of those things that happened back in the Rick tenure, like Shockley's not around in '05. And if Shockley's not around in '05, like you wonder like what do they do? Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like there's
Yeah.
a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of what ifs that, you could always go back to and compare. But like this is kind of my point is that I feel like that there's more curveballs that Kirby has had to deal with and navigate. He's had to navigate so much more outside of just freaking coaching football,
Yeah. Yeah.
recruiting football. Um, so yeah. I mean, basically, I mean, think about. I'll put it to you this way. So, in my opinion, Mark Richt was fired because he couldn't manage his offensive line effectively. Um, I think that's one of the biggest reasons that he got fired was because we could never ever get over the hump with our on the trenches. Seems to
Mhm.
be something that Kirby exclusively focuses on as a priority year after year. Um, Something that Nick Saban has been known for decades, right? So, um, I think that if you go back and look at what at what Kirby's been doing, uh, he's setting himself up to further separate from Richt beyond here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so year five, like we said, things started kind of going to the wayside. I can't remember what year was the Dream Team, and I know that like
The recruiting
I
class?
know that yeah, like the recruiting. I remember the
Was
Crowell
that
years and
Isaiah Crowell? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
The
that was 2011.
Yeah, so 2011, and then there was the 2013 Smoking Crater recruiting class that
Yeah.
I think the senator refers to as the Smoking Crater. So like, I don't know, man. I just think that Kirby's setting himself up to be in a much better position long term with some of the moves that he's been making and some of the ways that he's been able to fill holes. I mentioned it earlier though. It scares the hell out of me that we're going to potentially have to replace Todd Monken. Like that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to put glasses on it. Keep following that. So the idea is with all the turnover in the NFL right now, that there's plenty of open coordinator spots. So could he potentially pursue one of those? I mean, you
I
know,
mean, there's
no,
plenty of open head coaching spots.
yeah. And I mean, the NFL is attractive to a lot of coaches because you don't have to. I mean, in the NFL, I mean, other than the fact that NFL stands for not for long, because you don't produce, you get fired pretty quick. But you don't have to recruit. I mean, there's a general manager that handles player personnel for you. You don't have to worry about that. So I don't know. It's a
But
very different lifestyle.
I don't know. It's a different lifestyle. I know that Aaron Murray has talked about what it's like, what life is like as a coach in college football, and he's harped on that a lot. I've thought about that a good bit because Kirby did dedicate a lot of time to thanking the coaches' wives and the families and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I think that being a coach is tough, regardless of if you're in the NFL or if you're in the college ranks. But obviously, you have a little bit more responsibility in the college ranks. But at the same time, I think that recruiting job gets a little bit easier when you got a national title that you can tote along with you.
Oh yeah, man, for sure, for sure. I mean,
have you seen we've seen some of the recruiting content that they've put out there. Like,
yeah,
there's apparently a throne room now.
yeah. There's the throne room. I I will say, like, I find the video of like with the rotating camera, like when Kirby was like staring into the camera. I do find that rather funny, but isn't this
I hate it.
isn't that the same thing that we made fun of Brian Kelly for? Like, isn't
No, the difference is he didn't do
what's
some goofy ass dance.
okay? Brian Kelly did a dance. Okay,
Brian Kelly was like, it was like he was like he was like Saturday Night Live. What is love? What
nice,
do they call
nice.
those? Oh,
Okay,
Night at the
that's
Roxbury. They're like
Roxbury.
he was like the Night at the Roxbury dancing with that recruit.
Okay, okay, fair. Kirby just gazed into the eyes.
Kirby is literally just gazing into his eyes like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm doing this thing with the kid for the kids.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. The look on Kirby's face, I found to be hilarious.
It was a little goofy. It was a little goofy.
I mean, he's doing, and the Kirby copter is back in full effect.
The
Flying all over
Kirby
the state.
copter is a forever facet of the recruiting program.
Uh, I gotta find out. I know he went to Kirby Copter went to Jefferson, which is where cousin Sammy Brown. That's where he plays. So I don't know.
Hey,
I don't know exactly what's
Sammy.
going on there, but definitely gotta hit the family reunion this summer. I gotta talk to my parents about that. Do some recruiting.
How
Uh,
did Clemson do in the college football playoff?
uh,
Can't relate, brother. Can't relate.
I know. I gotta talk to that. Gotta talk to the family. Ugh. Okay. I don't. So we got listener questions. I don't know if you want to hit those or I was just trying to like reminisce around the season. Like it's hard for me now. Like I guess one question for you. Like, do you feel like I've heard this come up? I think have heard Logan Booker ask a bunch of people this. Like, do you feel like you enjoyed the ride enough? Like I know we're like on cloud nine post national championship, but during the season, I feel like it's kind of a funny question considering it was an undefeated season, undefeated regular season. I mean, 12-0, the most dominant defense, but there was still so much that happened. Like every week who's going to play, all these injuries, you know, quarterback
Hmm.
controversy, so to speak. You know, um, I
I'd
actually
say
feel
that
like, yeah, go ahead.
I'd say that the quarterback BS that happened all season long, which I was certainly in that boat. Like I was definitely like slogging in the trenches on that topic for many a weeks. I want to say it was probably like mid-season or something like that, where like you and I feel like you could probably go back and listen to some of our episodes where we were just like, "Yep, this is just what we're doing. This is
I
there's
think
no
it
change in
was.
this."
I think it was Florida. I think the Florida game was when we were like, all right, like coming off a bye week, JT didn't play. He's not playing.
Right, right. Yeah, he's done. There's something's going on, yeah. Um yeah, no, I think that once we got over that hump, I feel like I started enjoying it more.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do know that like when I feel like that's a loaded question because I feel like that the asking of that question is in the context of the 2017 season where it was like
Mm-hmm.
we had this magical trip to Notre Dame, we had this magical trip to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah,
Um like it was just like special and it was like we had dominating running backs. We had the same quarterback playing the whole season long. Like
kind
there
of
was no question.
for the most part.
There's really no question about who, you know, there was really not a big question about whether or not he was going to play or not, that kind of thing. Um, yeah,
Kind
I
of,
mean,
kind of. I don't know that I totally agree with you on that. There, eventually there was maybe post like Tennessee or Vanderbilt or whatever that year. Because I remember
I
at
mean, it
first that
wasn't.
year it was like, well, when Easton's healthy, it's got to be his job again, right? Like that was
Well, it wasn't.
some of the
It
talk.
wasn't until the following season that we really got the BS going.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's true. That's true. That's
I
fair.
I,
Good point.
I don't think so.
Relatively
I think that
speaking, relatively speaking, you're right.
I think that what happened was is kind of similar to what we saw in this season was that we got this kid coming, he's slinging it around, he's like he's doing pretty good, like he's
Hmm.
doing really good, like oh wow, this is a pretty good quarterback. You know what I mean? I feel like that it took us a little bit, and I think that when you started watching like the national, the thing that probably started shutting me up about it was there literally became a point where you had to be so you had to have such cognitive dissonance to statistics and data to make the argument that he shouldn't have been starting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's like this wish in one hand and in the other, and see which one fills up the most. And it was like Stetson's numbers just spoke for themselves. I mean, they spoke for themselves in the freaking college football playoff, for God's sake. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
he outshone the Heisman quarterback, like the guy that everyone was like, "Why can't we get a Bryce Young?" Well, Bryce Young like crapped the bed in the college football playoff, and on the biggest stage of his career, he completely melted down. And Stetson,
Moment was too big. Not really an athlete. And
not really an athlete. Yes.
yeah, I
Oh
mean,
man,
so
such a
Stetson
goat.
had what more touchdown, or maybe it was the same number. I can't remember. I heard the stats, but basically the main difference was the turnovers. I mean, Stetson had zero interceptions in the playoff, and Bryce I think had three.
Yeah, they had pretty much identical yards. They had pretty much identical yards, identical touchdowns, but Bryce had 3 interceptions. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I think that sounds about right. I mean, I think it was a weird season in that, like, you come out of Clemson game so excited, and really feel like that was a battle of two top five teams, and we got the best of them. But then, like when Clemson stumbled out of the gates after that, it kind of made you question, like, oh, what do we really have in our hands? You know. But then the same kind of thing as what you were saying with Stetson, like with the data, right? They're like we just kept beating everybody and kept beating everybody, and by so much. And I mean, like if you look at the numbers that our offense put up, I mean, part of the reason why they were as low as they were is because we blew everybody out. I mean, like we didn't do anything in the fourth quarter like all year because we never had to until the national championship game, really, right? Because I mean, other than obviously SEC championship game, but like we talked about, that was the outlier. Um, as far as we played in 2 4-quarter games that we won, and that was the Clemson game and the national championship game. Everything else, every other game that we won, it was decided, well before the end of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing. Like you look at the yards that those guys got, and no 1,000-yard receiver and no 1,000-yard back. Although Zeus and Cook both had really good years, I would say. I mean, Zeus
They
had.
did. I mean, so if you pivoted it and looked at like the not so much like the rushing yards or whatever, like if you looked at the total yards,
Yeah,
Cook had 1,000-yard season.
yeah. Yep.
Zeus Zeus was not too far behind.
Yeah, I think they
Um,
were within like 75 yards of each other, total yards, or rushing and receiving. They were
right,
really
right.
close.
And then I think, if I recall correctly, that we had Bowers. I mean, I know that Bowers was close to 1,000 yards, so like we
Yeah,
were pretty close. If had they like had to, put points on the board, or if we
yeah,
were,
exactly.
yeah. I
Yeah, that's
think
what I'm saying. Yeah,
we
yeah,
easily could have had some.
right. Like if we needed to keep going in the fourth quarter of these games instead of basically shutting it down, like we would have had some more of those individual statistics. So, but yeah, I mean, but I, I guess all that is to say is, you brought up 17, and it definitely was very different, just because 17 was a surprise. Like that's part of why it was so fun, is we didn't
Hmm.
see it coming. Like I remember back
Sure.
then looking to 18, thinking like 18 is going to be our year, and then 17 happened. I was like, whoa, where'd that come from? And that's why it was so exciting. This one, I mean, we came in again back to our season preview. I mean, you predicted us to go 12-0. By the way, you did. That was your prediction. I was not so bold. I said we would go over 10.5 wins. I think is what I said, regular season. But I mean, we expected it this year, and so there was a lot more pressure on the program to produce and to do it. And then, I mean, and so I guess that makes it not any less fun, but just a different. The feeling wasn't the same, but equally fun, but in a different way. So it's probably more stressful. I guess maybe I don't know. Maybe although was it really stressful? I guess it wasn't, because there was no fourth quarter stressful games after Clemson until the SEC championship. So I feel like I definitely enjoyed it, and I think we definitely kind of tried on here and said, it's a special season, savor it, and make sure you're enjoying it. So I don't know, kind of my take.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's one of those. It's one of those like it was the first time in a long time that we had any sort of like inkling that something like that would happen,
Yeah,
um, or hope. I guess I should say it's probably the birthplace of hope. Um, um,
I'm still disappointed with how that ended, by the way. But carry on.
I'm very disappointed. I think that there's so many things wrong with how SEC Shorts ended their season, and I chalk it all up to the fact that he was a Bama fan.
Agreed. Agreed.
It was like from getting Ringo's name wrong, like really,
Yeah, that's so bad. So bad.
I can't like it's one of those things where it's like I work in marketing, right? So like we have to go through levels of approvals. Like someone had to approve that, right?
seriously, seriously, so true, so true.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, I
uh,
can't even with you guys. You let me down. You let me down at the moment we needed you most.
too
Um,
fun.
yeah,
Well, let's. You want to hit the listener questions, because we'll get into some more kind of season type stuff through those for sure. Um,
let's hit it up.
let's hit it. All right. First, new Twitter handle. So our buddy Greg, no longer Mountain to the Seas, now Dogs fan for the number 4. Dogs fan forever. That's Greg. Um, what do you see as the biggest differences in Georgia's play between the SEC championship game and the national championship game?
We talked about this. we talked about this on the national championship review, but in my opinion, the biggest difference between the SEC championship and the national championship is two things. It's actually two things.
Okay.
Number one, it is the decided matchup of having to win in order to, advance or whatever. So we didn't have to win the SEC championship game, and I think that we would be lying if we, didn't admit the fact that if you are a competitor in a situation where it's like, okay, I don't have to do this, I can kind of wait until the end and then finish the workout or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I've been in that situation before as well. Like, okay, I'm gonna work really hard, and then the workout gets really tough, and it's like, oh man, this sucks. I got to save myself for the end.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
kind of you kind of half-ass it in the beginning, in the middle, right? And then right at the end, you pour it on to try to hit that PR or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
it's like that's exactly what happened in this situation. I feel like, I mean, there's no other moment bigger than when that 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 video review of Jordan Davis will when Bama was driving and like he kind of just like gave up. Like visually, he just kind of looked like he just gave up.
Yeah. He was
There's a
gassed.
number of things. There's a number of things that happen there, but one of them is that the knowledge that you're safe even if you lose this game. The other thing that happened is they kicked it in high gear for preparation for the next 30 plus days, which thank gosh the game was, almost a month later or whatever. For 30-ish days, they had nothing but conditioning that they could do to get ready for what they ultimately did, which is to get ready for the fourth quarter, to get ready for that final push. Um, I talked about this, but like if you're an athlete that's like that, like if I decided tomorrow, Jim, that I wanted to go and train for a half marathon, I easily could do that in 30 days. I easily could do that in 30 days. So like if you are already at a baseline of, you know, fitness, all you need to do is to get through the fourth quarter. Like there were multiple situations where Jordan Davis was like, I gotta go run. And like we're
Yeah.
doing conditioning. Like that's stuff that they don't really have a whole lot of time for in the middle of the season. So like all of a sudden you have some downtime, where you've got practices, sure, but they definitely had downtime. I mean, they had the Christmas break, they had the holiday, to basically go and be with family and stuff. Like they very clearly there was a gauntlet laid down for you guys need to get in shape for the college football playoff, and we came and we blew out two top 10 teams. So
Yeah.
um, in my opinion, those are the differences. We just knew and tried harder, and not only that, we prepared harder.
Yeah. I would agree. Um, I would say my biggest difference is the. I mean, honestly, like looking back, I feel like the offense wasn't insanely different between the two games,
It
right? The
was the
offense wasn't.
defense. We
It was the
talked
defense,
about
right?
that.
So it was the defense like not giving up the deep ball, right? That's number one, right? They didn't
Hmm.
let them go over top, and even when there was a big play, they tackled them and they didn't give up the touchdown. That's the biggest thing. Besides the fact that the other biggest thing, which is obviously the number one most important key to the game, we won the coin toss.
Yes, that's true. We did talk about that. It was like the most important play of the game was going to be the coin toss.
Too
And
funny.
the other thing that I think that so you got coaching. I think that some of the preparation that I mentioned was manifesting itself through the pressure that we were able to get on Bryce Young. The data showcased that we should have been blitzing him all day long. We decided not to do that. It's almost like we had two different game plans. Although I think we were trying to get pressure on him the first game, we just weren't able to get to him, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. It was like the whole we got there, but we didn't get him to the ground, and then that, I mean,
right.
that's a huge difference. I will say, I'll backtrack my whole conspiracy theory. I'm gonna go back on my like sandbagging. Not that it was ever really serious, but after watching the second game, like Alabama's really good, man. Like I mean, like they're really good, and I think I think the first point that you made though, or maybe it was the second point. Either way, just the whole back of your head, knowing that you don't have to win. I think that probably was the other than the coin toss was the biggest thing. Let's see. We can go to the next one. Zach SC Dog 864 on Twitter. Um, Favorite offensive and defensive moments by the team in the regular season? Do you have a moment?
A moment that I'll probably carry with me for a long time is probably the Bowers touchdown at Georgia Tech.
Yeah,
The
that's a good
the
one.
pass the pass that he caught where he made an acrobatic catch in the end zone. The
Yeah,
only reason I say that is because I just number one I got number one I happened to get it on video on the sideline, and it made the reel that I put together for my son, my brother-in-law, and my father-in-law. Like all of us were there for that game, so
yeah.
like that's probably one of the plays that sticks out the most for me. Um, yeah, I would say that's probably one of the plays that'll stick out forever for me.
Mine, I'll go with maybe a defensive one. I would say actually the opening. I consider this a moment. The opening series for Arkansas, because that was one of the one of the games that I got to go to in person. And that one we had the whole family there. The girls were there with us, and just the noise. You know, remember that game? The question was 12 o'clock kickoff. What's it going to be like in Sanford? Is it going to be late
Mm-hmm.
arriving crowd? You know, not going to be. And like, I mean, that was as loud as I've heard Sanford. And you know, they had like I think what two false starts to start the game. They were just going backwards.
Right.
So that was pretty awesome. That was uh, close second would be the Chris Smith pick six, which that,
I
that's
was
pretty
just
awesome.
about to say I was just about to say that's going to be my defensive one was the
Okay.
Chris Smith pick six because and it's funny that I say this because these are both games that I was physically at. So
Yeah.
um, so I was there for game one with us at Clemson. So I was literally standing next to you. So like so I've got memories with my son and my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, and I got memories with you. And they're two like iconic plays that I think that were really kind of summarized the games, the season, because we led with defense and we had killer offense. We had a killer instinct on offense. So
Yeah.
the interception that Chris Smith took to the house really kind of set the tone for the season. It was like, no matter what, we're going to play to the end, and we're going to give you everything that we've got. And on the defensive side, we were more than likely going to win over everyone. Um,
Yeah.
and then that Bowers touchdown was just so the Bowers touchdown, the acrobatic touchdown, but like his performance in that Georgia Tech game, I think was really just like kind of all encompassing because that was also the game that he had the breakaway touchdown where he just literally outran
Yeah.
like everyone like they were playing in high school.
Yeah. That was unbelievable. I still can't believe he did that. Um, my offensive one, there's so many. I'm gonna go with the Stetson to the official, unofficial, official T.R.S. Jackson in the Florida game. That was pretty awesome because that just demoralized them in the insane flurry at the end of the first half of the cocktail party.
That's a good
Yeah,
one. That's a good one.
I'll pick that one. Okay, and then Zach also said, which young player slash returning player on this team are you most excited to watch next year? You got a young guy? I mean,
Yeah. How do we
uh,
define young guy?
yeah, I don't, we say just young player, returning player, because like I could say Brock Bowers and Keely Ringo because they're both young and coming back. Um, like Brock Bowers, sophomore tight end for University of Georgia, is a scary thought. Like, watch out, college football. Um, I don't know. Maybe a guy, maybe a lesser known, maybe a guy that we didn't see much from this year. Like, I'll give
Uh,
one. Oh, go ahead. You got an idea?
no, go ahead. I have some comments to say before I give my answer, but go ahead.
So I'm thinking Dumas Johnson. That's a guy I'm excited about. I'm excited about next
Okay.
year. He had a pick six in the UAB game. Um, all the inside linebackers are gone. you know, so we got Jacoby Dean, Channing Tindall, Quay Walker. Those guys are all gone. So we're gonna have a pretty fresh, new, fresh, young inside linebacker group next year, and he's a guy I'm excited about.
Mm-hmm. 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 I mean, obviously Jalen Carter would be wrapped up in there. Um, I mean, so if I was thinking about like guys that are just not on the radar right now, so when you ask that question, like I think about guys that are just not on our radar. Um, and I guess I don't know. AD Mitchell would probably be another guy on the
Yeah, I
offensive
mean,
side.
I was just thinking his name too, for sure.
Because we full transparency. I think we mentioned this on the last episode, but like we gave him a hard time a good bit this year because
Yeah,
there were definitely some points, some down points for him this year. But the way that he ended the season was more indicative of what I was expecting from him, based on
yeah,
everything that I've been hearing about him. So like what we were hearing from practice just wasn't matching up to the productivity on the field. So like maybe he turned a corner. And I feel like I mentioned this to you, and I don't know if I mentioned this in the last podcast or I can't remember at this point, but like I know that I spoke to you about this was, you think back to the 2nd and 26 play with Tua. His bomb was to a little guy that nobody really knew a whole lot about named Devonta Smith.
yeah,
Um, that was his coming out party. AD Mitchell had a very similar showing where he caught an iconic play, and I'm hoping that that's a springboard for him for next season. So excited for him. Yes. So the caveat there is like, you mentioned Bowers and sophomore year Bowers. Like, yes, I agree. We as Georgia fans have been like yearning for a Leonard Pope type season from somebody. Um, you utilize the tight ends that we've been recruiting.
yeah.
Um, even like a Nauta, Isaac Nauta season like we had in 2017, but like I don't know, man. I think that ultimately that's going to come down to who the offensive coordinator is for next year and how they scheme things up. If Monken is back, I'm excited for those guys. Like I'm excited to see a
Yeah.
sophomore season Brock Bowers, a sophomore season AD Mitchell, because clearly he wants those guys to get the ball. Um, Even though AD didn't necessarily produce in the earlier stages of the game, he still kept coming to him. He still kept targeting him. So
Yeah.
um, anyway, guys that we don't know about, that we haven't really heard a whole lot about. Um, hmm. On on the on the offensive side, so Tate Ratledge got hurt, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was an offensive lineman that was supposed to be, he was supposed to be one of the best linemen that we had, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was the
So
starting right guard beginning of the year. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know. Tate Ratledge is probably one of those guys that like you're kind of excited to see what happens with him.
For
From
sure.
a skill position type player. Um, I'm hoping that Kendall Milton has a breakout season. Like
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what he looks like with with a full boat of carries. Even Kenny McIntosh, you could probably bundle into that as well. Like I mean, he looked pretty good towards the end of the season, man.
He looked really
Um,
good. He looked really good. I mean, he was the third back, behind
yeah,
two studs. And I mean, he made some huge plays in the national championship game. Huge
I
plays.
think I think the question is going to come down to at the running back position, who replaces Zeus? Who becomes that slobber knocker, like punch you in the mouth, like I am angry. Like there were multiple plays in the national championship game that were very similar to the 2012 game where we just lined up guys and just punched them in the mouth, like just like
Yeah.
grind out 2-3 yards, grind out 4 yards, 5 yards. Those kind of guys. I mean, I think that's supposed to be it's supposed to be Kendall Milton.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know.
so. I mean, he like remember he like knocked that one dude out in the Clemson game. Um,
Right.
I mean, if
I
Kendall can
kind of
stay,
have.
if he can stay
Yeah.
healthy, I think he can do it. That's been the question on him thus far because he hasn't been able to finish. He has not. He has yet to make it through a full season. I mean, who knows? I mean, injuries are super random, right? But if he can stay healthy, he's got the talent. I mean, we've seen it in spurts, but
Yeah. The other guy on defense that I'm excited to see is Nolan Smith. I feel like that he had kind of an unsung season this
yeah,
year, so
yeah,
um,
yeah,
I think Nolan Smith on that side of the ball is going to be fun to watch.
for sure. All right, let's mix it up a little bit with 51-7 GATA. He has a Georgia Florida topic. Does Coach Smart winning a national championship have any impact on the game staying in Jacksonville or not? It seems like he would like to see it played on campus. Then I give you some extra background. He said before the season, I was thinking that if he ever won a natty, that may give him the power to move the game. Shaking your
I
head.
don't know that I don't know that he has the power to make that call. I think that's more of a
Yeah.
Josh Brooks and shoot, who's the athletic director down there? Who's the athletic
Who
director?
cares?
Yeah, whatever.
Strickland? Strickland?
Strickland.
Maybe.
Yeah, there you go. So I don't know. That's more of a above Kirby's pay grade, technically, although not technically because Kirby makes more money than these guys. Um, yeah, I don't know that he necessarily is going to have any sway in that because financially for the University of Georgia program. It just makes so much more economic sense to do it the way that they're doing here.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I recognize that there are intangible, unfinancial, or whatever benefits that the you know recruiting program gets if they were to put that game on campus. It becomes a much more marketable game for recruits to attend. Because I think that Kirby mentioned that it's like complex as hell to try to get recruits down to the Georgia Florida game
Yeah,
because
he
of the
says he
nature of how,
basically doesn't. They basically don't do it. Really,
yeah, pretty
they don't.
much.
They don't
Which
host recruits there. Basically,
right. Um, I imagine that he's probably working out loopholes for that, but that's beside the point here. Um, yeah, I don't know that he's going to make that call. I would love for the universities to be able to do that. I mean, it's like one of those things where it's like I I have never seen Georgia play Florida at the in the swamp.
yeah,
No, I don't think anybody in our lifetime has seen the has seen Georgia play in the swamp or has been to the swamp. So it's like one of those college experiences that like you probably are just never going to get, even though you literally play these guys every year and you talk smack to each other all year long.
yeah. I don't know. I'm torn. So I've seen Florida play in Athens. Unfortunately, I went to the debacle game when they hung half 100 on us. I was in high school. Um, I mean, there's two reasons to have games played in Athens. That one is a Kirby thing and one is not. So Kirby recruiting, you already mentioned that. The not like non football related, just for the city of Athens and money, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
so yes, the University of Georgia gets all kinds of money from the city of Jacksonville to go play there,
Mm-hmm.
but you're losing out all the local shops, bars, stores,
Yeah.
restaurants. They miss out on a home game, right? So that's the negative. I mean,
The
they
police
strive.
the police also saved themselves some pain and agony, I'm sure.
I'm sure. I'm sure. They don't have to worry about Kirby and Bobo going to Foxes or whatever. Um, but for me, and I have not been to the cocktail party in forever, but I thoroughly enjoyed going to it when I was in college, and someday I think you and I at this point in our lives, we're doing like soccer on the weekends and all kinds of stuff. Like we kind of live by our kids' soccer schedules or whatever sport or whatever activity. Ella's doing theater. You guys have soccer, volleyball, all kinds of stuff going on, right? Like someday, maybe I'll start going to that game again. But it is a great trip, man. To go down there, take a long weekend, go to the beach. Obviously a lot of nostalgia, but it's a fun trip, man. I always love going down there. So I I would hate for it to just go away altogether. If there ends up being some kind of rotation, I guess I would be okay with that. But I'm actually personally, this wasn't really the question, but I kind of hope it stays. Or I do, not kind of. I hope it just stays in Jacksonville. Period. But I agree with you. I don't know that this gives Kirby any kind of special pull. So
I think that if it stays in Jacksonville, it's like a forever 3:30 kickoff kind of game. Like
yeah,
it'll
literally every year right now.
Yeah. I don't know how ESPN's going to treat it moving forward.
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, if we ever have a noon kickoff for a Georgia Florida game, I'm going to be pissed.
For real.
Yeah, so I think that I putting it in an NFL stadium creates a different atmosphere and situation for the whole deal, making it more of a national spectacle, very similar to like a Chick-fil-A kickoff or whatever. But I don't know. If I had my pick, I would go to a 3-year rotation. So 1 year it's in Athens, 1 year it's in Jacksonville, 1 year it's in Gainesville. I feel like that's a best of both worlds scenario, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know that you can do it every 3. I would do like home Jacksonville, away Jacksonville, and I would not add Atlanta. I've heard that floated. I don't see a point in doing that.
No, why would we do that?
All right. Before we move on, 51-7 GATA also added. He just added. Also, thanks for doing this. It made the season a lot more fun. So I have to say thank you to you, 51-7 GATA, for always submitting a great question. I think pretty much every week you've always chimed in. That goes for everyone. It's cool to hear you say that. Like I'm not gonna lie about that, but I would just say like back at everyone who's listening, the fact that you guys have like downloaded, listened, and interacted with us,
tweeted the GIF.
It made it, retweeted the GIFs, gave us GIF suggestions, tagged the podcast on Twitter during the games. I promise you, it made it more fun for us too. So it was a blast, man.
We're doing this for fun. Like I don't know if anybody has noticed, but we haven't thrown out sponsors every 5 minutes. So like literally, we're just doing this for fun. And just to give you a little inside baseball, Mr. and Mrs. Listener, we have to deal with the ire of our children and wives as they roll their eyes as we talk about this stuff.
Dad, are you talking to your Twitter friends again? Whatever. I'm not in person. Gosh.
Lindsay's like, are you sure these people are real?
Oh my gosh.
And then you show them the pictures of the tailgate, and it's like, okay, it's real.
I thought your inside baseball was going to be our text back and forth on Monday when you were like, hey man, I had a really long day. I'm kind of tired. Can we delay recording? And I was like, I mean, we're not getting paid for this. We can do whatever we want.
That's true. I was exhausted.
Too funny. All right. Let's see. Fletcher Proctor. I love this one. And you already answered this on Twitter, but I want you to say the same thing again. How long will I continue to get goosebumps watching the Ringo Chip Six? Until September? Until we win another title?
Forever.
Yes.
Literally forever. I mean, I mean, every time I see something, I feel like over the last several weeks, there's been multiple angles that it's like, oh, that's a new angle. I haven't seen that. Like, oh,
yeah,
I'm definitely going to watch this.
I make it a rule that anytime anything like that comes across, like in my line of sight, I'm watching it. Like I just watch it every time. Let me ask you. Let's ask it this way: like, do you not still get? I mean, okay, I was. Let's see. How old was I? I was like 8 months old when Lindsey Scott, caught the pass from Buck Bellew. I get goosebumps when I see that replay. I mean, it's never going to go away. It will never go away. It's always going to be awesome. 41-year drought. It's never going away. I don't see how that could ever get old. So amazing.
Yeah, I don't think it'll get old, and I'm hoping that I mentioned this to you, but like to me, like I watching the play, like you think about like how it makes you feel, but like I also think about on moments like that, like even tragic moments, like I think about where I was, what I was doing, who I was with, what was around me at that specific time. Um, so like I'll never forget the moment that I shared with my son during that time. So like yes, like there will
Yeah.
always be goosebumps that go along with that.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. All right. Let's see. UGA Hoops Mafia. Dantzler promised that if the Dogs won the Natty, he wouldn't worry about any games next year except Tech. Following his lead, you only get one game to stress over next season. Which game are you picking? I have a cheating answer
You
because
have a
my
cheating
cheating
answer?
answer is Oregon because I know I'm going to stress about the first game. The reality is I stress over every game, so I know I'll stress over Oregon.
I don't know. Word on the street is that you and Fripp Dog were the calming effect in the national championship game.
That is true.
Um,
But we call them others, so it doesn't mean. Although actually, you know what? I am kind of curious if that'll keep because I don't remember how much we talked about this in the review. Like I wasn't nervous for the national championship, which was really weird. So who knows? I don't know. Maybe that'll keep going. But I still think Oregon is my answer because it's going to be first game of the season. Who knows?
I don't know,
Who
man.
knows?
First year coach program.
That's the other side of that coin. That's why you shouldn't. That's fair. That's why you shouldn't be nervous for that one. But
The blue
yep.
chip the blue chip ratio, all that stuff.
But if you look at our schedule's not all that crazy next year,
No, it's not. I mean, so
right?
golly,
Like who else are you gonna be nervous about?
who else are you going to be nervous for? Yeah. I mean, it's probably going to be Oregon. I'll say Oregon only because I'm more so worried about who the hell our offensive coordinator is going to be for this game.
You're already Munsoning. You're Munsoning. If Munkin goes to the NFL, I'm gonna
Listen.
officially change it to right. No wait, right now. Okay, worrying about if Munkin will go to the NFL. That is Munkining. Is that Munkining? I think you're
No,
Munkining.
it's for sure. It's for sure Munsoning. I
Uh,
don't know, man. Like it's just one of those things. It's like we've seen this. We've seen this episode play out. I mean, think about it when Schottenheimer came in, and then what's he going to do after that? And then Cheney was here, and we had our issues with Cheney, and then Coley, and like think about all the bad offensive coordinators we've had. We've had really like two decent offensive coordinators. Bobo was one of them, and even then we had our issues with Bobo back then. So like this Monken character came, like he's like a breath of fresh air and figuring out our offense. Like we literally went from our wide receivers couldn't break their way out of a paper bag in 2019, and then Monken comes along, and all of a sudden they're running free down the middle of the field with flipping Stetson Bennett throwing touchdown passes to them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a big change. I mean, I feel like Cheney was riding the coattails of Nick Chubb and Sonny Michelle, and when they were gone, he wasn't as good. Coley was. We've said this before. Coley was Kirby's Willie Martinez. Hopefully he learned from his mistake, and if it happens again, he knows what to do. All right. I don't know how much we really want to get into this one. This one, the question is coming from inside the text thread. John Tweet Sports. do players who won a natty with the team but then transferred out get invited back to the 20-year natty reunion in 2041?
The questions are coming in from inside the text thread. So funny. Yes. This was my question.
Here, can I play John? Can I play John for a second?
Sure.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
What's the clarifying question?
Is it, do I want them to be invited back, or do I think they will be invited back?
What do you want? What do you want, Jim?
Can I plead the Fifth Amendment on that?
No,
Here,
dude. Listen. Give me what you think. Quick, off the cuff.
Rapid fire 3 answers. What will happen? Yes, they'll be invited back. What would I do if it was up to me? I would invite them back. What do I want to happen? Never come back to Athens again.
Nice. I think that they will be invited. I don't think that they will come, and you're dead to me.
All right.
You get jumped in. You get jumped into this life with all the punches that were thrown. Like, I mean, you know what's going on. You know the blood, sweat, and the tears that went into this program. You have a head coach that literally lived through this, and he leads you to the national championship, and then you're like, peace, I'm going to the enemy. Literally the enemy.
Yeah.
No, you're dead. You're dead to me, son.
I don't get it. I'll say this too. I've seen a lot of look, I'm not saying that kids shouldn't be allowed to transfer. Like, I think transfer portal I don't really have an issue with. I don't have an issue with it not having to sit out a year either. Like, that's
totally fine. Totally
fine. What I don't get is like going to a rival. And what I want to get out of the way is like this, what I find to be a pretty bad analogy. It's like, well, you know, if you're at your job and there's a competitor company and they come and give you a better offer, do you leave and go? And as someone who changed jobs, we haven't talked about this on here, but I mean, I changed jobs in the middle of this season, by the way. My company that I work for is not my school. It is a very different thing. Your education, and you can say, yeah, these guys are there to play football, but I'm considering, you know, getting better at football and preparing yourself for the NFL. That is part of your education as well, right? Your education is an investment that you make in yourself, and your alma mater means something. And that is different than the investment that a company makes in you. When you have a job, your company is investing in you to produce for them. When you go to school, you're investing in yourself to better yourself, to prepare yourself for real life. Totally different thing. I mean, like, you know, if you want to make a better analogy, if you want to make a good analogy, you would talk about people who transfer colleges. Someone who starts out their college career at college A and finishes at college B. That happens all the time. Let's start using that as the analogy, not changing companies, because it's not the same thing. So whatever. I'll get off my soapbox, but I hate that analogy. I don't think it's a good one.
It's not the same thing, but hey, man, you know what? If you've got to go to Alabama to get more playing time, I love where that puts us in this grand scheme of things. Like,
amazing. Yes.
Good luck to you, sir.
Yeah, seriously.
There's a saying that we have in the South, right? Like, don't let the screen door hit you in the ass on the way out.
Who said that? Was it? I don't remember who said it. Someone we interact with quite frequently was like, look, if you want to go to a lesser team to get more playing time, by all means.
Okay. That was funny.
All right, Dwight, Doodah Dog. Let's look forward. Have you already scouted and or secured a spot for the 2022 ATL My God a Podcast Oregon Tailgate / Bourbon Block Party? This should be RSVP and invitations go out next week. Be elite. Now, thankfully, before we had to answer this ourselves, Dogs Fan Forever, our buddy Greg, formerly known as the Twitter, formerly known as Mountain to the Seas, He replied to Dwight and said, "I'm working on scouting out a location for the 2022 kickoff tailgate location." So, Greg was gracious enough to host the ATD tailgate in Charlotte, where everything got started off this year. So we will spread the word. Sounds like something similar will be in place to kick off the season next year. So,
and all the tailgates really. So
yeah,
big,
seriously.
big shout out, Greg, the real MVP, Greg and Rodeo and those guys.
Yeah, for sure. Greg, Rodeo, Cat 95 Dog, helping out with the planning. Let's see. All right, I like this one. Jason Huggins, Hug Dog 18. I like the way it started off. Hope I wasn't too late. But hey, we re-recorded 2 days late, so you're good, Hug Dog. All right, finish the sentence. The off season was a success if blank. And then he said he gave his answer. His blank was if Georgia gets the senior leadership it experienced last year. Mine, for me, the offseason is a success if there's nothing in the headlines.
There's no headlines. Yeah, that's totally fair. I was gonna say something similar, like no injuries, which frankly would be like, a headline. So no headlines, no arrests, no injuries, no major news breaking situations that cause anything or any players to come in the headlines.
For sure.
That would be a success in my opinion.
Amen.
Unless it's Todd Monken decides to stick around and to run it back.
I mean, if Todd Monken comes back, is he gonna have a graphic? And it's like hashtag right back.
That would be funny. He should. Whoever's listening that has tentacles into the graphics department, please make that happen. Let's run it back.
Totally should.
The graphic. I will say, he's on for a guy that may be potentially interviewing at other schools. Like I know he was in Houston today, and Houston has an opening, so maybe some of that is self-serving, but he's on the recruiting trail, which if you remember, in the gap between the SEC championship and the Michigan game, the Orange Bowl, we didn't see Dan Lanning on the recruiting trail at all. It was wait, what? Where is he? What's he doing?
Right.
At least Monken's on the recruiting trail right now, so we get that going for us, which is nice.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, inside sources, word in the street. Bobo has been in town, so not that he's going to be the offensive coordinator, but definitely sounds like it could be an analyst position or something. I mean, Bobo, Kirby, and Muschamp,
we're getting the band back together.
So amazing. They're going downtown. Thankfully, Fox's is closed, so we don't have to worry about Bobo getting arrested.
So I'm just putting it out there. So let's just say Jim, knock on your head.
Done.
So if Monken leaves for the NFL, God forbid, and does his thing, whatever, Bobo technically is sitting there as an offensive coordinator, potentially in waiting. Sorry if that triggered a whole swath of.
But everyone's like, run the ball, and over under listeners that just said, run the damn ball, Bobo.
Yeah, seriously. Maybe it's gonna be Buster Faulkner. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, let's just say that he's out there. I'll say that Aaron Murray has gone on record lobbying for the quarterback coach's job.
He also wants to be Stetson in the Stetson Bennett movie. So Aaron's lobbying. He's
lobbying for a lot.
It's all that NFT money that he's rolling in, I guess. I don't know. But I digress. Which I still don't understand. Can someone explain cryptocurrency and NFTs to me? Because another episode. Maybe we'll have a guest a guest on to explain this to me because I don't understand it. Okay.
I understand them in concept. I just don't understand them in practice. Like the NFTs, I don't understand NFTs in practice. I understand crypto in practice, but not NFTs.
Gotcha.
That's definitely something that sounds like a scam.
Maybe that's some off-season research we can do. All right. Well, let's hit this. Let's move on to this. We have to finish out our listener segment, Coach Trillbill's final thoughts. Coach's final thoughts. Plenty of memories were made this year, and this podcast truly embodied the pulse of the fan base. You guys brought clarity to many moments and gave us a spark of hope we needed to keep chopping. Thanks to all who enjoyed my over-unders. It was an honor doing this every week, from Charlotte to Auburn, to the Vills, to Atlanta, to Miami, to Indy, and especially to Athens, and everywhere in between. Thank you, Jim and John. Final over-under. Memories made this season, over-under 33.18 thousand. I see what you did there, Coach.
Let me see what you did there.
I'm gonna take the over.
I'm gonna take the over as well. Yeah, man, like that's been a staple. Like Coach Trill, the unofficial third member.
The best was when like when I ran into Coach Trillbill at a home game this year. This was the first game I went to. I'm trying to think. I think it was South Carolina. And I was like, so like, who is Coach Trillbill? Is that you? And he was like, yeah, it's me. Like I wasn't even sure up until that point if it was who I thought it was. That's when I confirmed who Coach Trillbill actually is.
And he unmasked himself now. So
he did. He unmasked himself in the Twitter video where he had predicted. I think it was after a Kentucky game. He predicted the Natty that we were going to add a banner. It's pretty awesome.
And he was standing right where the banner was going to go.
Yes. So those banners are right behind where he and I sit. So we sit. I'm trying to think. I think Coach Trillbill is like one section over from me, and like a little bit behind us. 51 to 7 GATA sits like in the same section as I do. He's like back to the right of me, and Coach Trillbill is over my left shoulder. So it's pretty funny. That was pretty funny to realize that we all like sit right by each other. It's pretty funny. Man,
the vibes are good that far up, huh?
Hey, man, my parents got those season tickets originally in that section when I was a freshman. So 98. I can't remember how many tickets we had there originally, but I was a student, so I had my student tickets, and then we expanded to more tickets when I got out of college. So, yeah, man, it's like the all 22. You can see everything unfold.
That is the all 22.
I like it. I like it like that. I don't like close to the field. You can't see what's going on. For me,
I don't know
my perspective.
I don't know that I've ever seen a game from that vantage point, though. I feel like
because we're behind the goal line. Yeah.
So I feel like I've seen. Now that I'm thinking about this, I've seen the game from pretty much every other area on the field except for that one that high up and that far over. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're like, well, for home games, we're in like the fourth row of the 300 level. So we're low in that bowl, or low in the upper bowl. And then in the end zone that's closed in just behind to the right of the goalpost, which is the funny thing is, so for the national championship game, we were in the end zone to the left of the goalpost. My dad and I were for our Natty tickets, but we were a lot higher up. We were towards the top, and it's funny, because like those pro stadiums, they're smaller, or there's less seats. There are less seats, but they're steeper. So we were definitely a lot higher up for the national championship. But
Yeah,
I like it. I like
those
it. I could see everything. That's how I like it.
that would have scared me if it's anything like the Atlanta United games at the upper deck. Like that was, I'm not really afraid of heights or anything like that, but like I've been to some of those games at at the Mercedes Benz where it's like the upper deck. I felt like I was literally climbing a mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. When we went to the only time I've sat in the upper deck at Mercedes Benz was for the 2017 championship game. Um, that's the only time I've sat up there. So otherwise, the only I went to Atlanta United once there. I was down low. Thanks. Shout out Matt Moore. But anyway. Uh,
Oh man,
well,
is that it? Is
I
that
don't know. I think that's it. You got
does that
anything else?
does that wrap the questions?
That wraps the questions. That wraps the questions. So so now we transition into the off season. I know last year we took a big break. Um, I don't want to say that there's going to be a specific cadence, but I think we're hopeful that we'll have more frequent off season episodes than we did last year. We're going to try to revisit some topics and some folks that we've talked to before. And we've already started talking to some of them. So be on the lookout. Obviously subscribe. That way you don't have to worry about it. It'll always just show up in your podcast player. But we'll get the word out on the socials, on Twitter for sure. That's definitely where we're most active. And I did want to say, make sure we do have a website as well. mygodapodcast.com. It's pretty easy. Check out our merch page. It's up there at the top. You can go check that out. We got our store and then some officially licensed stuff if you want to get that as well. So be sure to check that out. But yeah, so we'll be back. We'll be back. We don't want the moment to end, right? So you have a bit of a victory lap, and we'll just talk about it as much as we want.
We gotta take some victory lap, man. Yeah, no, I think that we've got some good stuff, in store. If hopefully it pans out the way that we're envisioning. So, be on the lookout. But yeah, we've got more coming.
Has it sunk in yet?
It's definitely sunk in, Jim.
I think it's fine.
We've reached like laughing at Alabama fans level.
How okay, before we end, I think we do need to talk about that a little bit. How great is the Alabama fan like online meltdown? Now I know granted earlier we talked about that Twitter isn't real life and stuff, but like sure is fun to watch them like dance around things and talk about make excuses. It's delicious. It's yummy. To use the same word as yummy.
My favorite ones are the ones where it's like they try to just insult us by like, yeah, you guys only win one every 40 years.
Right. Exactly. Well, and I love how like I saw one today where somebody was like they threw I don't even know what the record is, but like basically saying that we had only beat them once since, and like they started with 2008. I'm like, well, that's a pretty arbitrary date to choose, especially considering we beat them in 2007. It's like it's like we don't play them that much, and like that's the date, the year you're going to start going forward with. We beat you in 2007, and then we had beat you the 2 times prior. So like, why don't we start with 2002 or something? I don't know. Like when you pick these non all time records and pick a specific date, I always find funny. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, the meltdown has been fun to watch. The mental gymnastics are always hilarious to me, and I mean, like whatever. Like, there's nothing there's like literally nothing they can say that's gonna make me mad right now. That's what's so beautiful about it.
Yep. Well, I'm hoping that we continue to see more of that.
Yes, seriously,
as
for sure.
as the off season rolls on. I'll tell you what I'm waiting for is I've had some Auburn fans come up to me and say, "Man, congratulations, we're happy for you. Like, just so glad that it's not Bama again." Like,
Mhm.
they get it. They get it. Um, what I haven't heard a whole lot of yet are the Tennessees and the Florida Gators. I haven't heard those guys. Those guys have been crickets. It's literally been crickets
Yes.
all month long. Is like, when are we going to start hearing from you guys? Do y'all still exist anymore?
I will say the only one I'll give credit to, and as much as it pains me, is I've talked about that. Like I actually like my like high school tight knit group of friends. Essentially, we were like 50-50 Georgia Tech. I have had multiple of those guys reach out with and extend congratulations. So even the tech
Yes,
people
even
are,
the
are
techies.
congratulating
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
think they realize that it's. I think they realize that it's so far gone from their reach to be competitive with us on a consistent basis that they've just kind of consigned themselves to like, yeah, you guys finally won.
Well,
And we're probably never going to come close
hey,
again.
that's actually the conversation I have with one of my buddies.
Yeah, I've
Unfortunately,
had it with two. I've had it with two guys, two
yeah,
two 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 guys.
yeah. Oh. All right, man. Well, it was fun to relive it again. Tonight, I'm sure we will relive it again within the coming weeks and months. And it's like we told Fletcher Proctor, it will never get old, ever.
Ever, never, ever, ever. Go dogs.
Go dogs.